Who won the 2020 election for President of the United States?
President Biden was certified as the winner of that election.
So you give the standard answer. You can't say that he won because he got the majority of votes and also got the Electoral College victory?
I think the characterizations that you just made, Senator, are both political, and so I can't address them under the canons, and they're also tied up in ongoing litigation.
Help me understand how it's political to state who got the most votes in any election. This question of temperament obviously is relevant. You'd acknowledge that?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. And you made a comment in response to Senator Booker, who was asking you questions, and I'll ask these as well, that complaints were never made ethically, and there'd be a responsibility of an attorney to make those ethical complaints under the judicial code. I just have to say I disagree with that. I mean, I was a defense attorney, worked with many prosecutors, had enormous respect for those prosecutors. So the temperament issue doesn't always get into the question of whether it's an ethical violation, but it does get into the temperament and why that, in my view, is very important, whatever our job is, but particularly for a judge where you've got that incredible power. So I do want to go through some of these questions that have been raised by that letter that was sent making some complaints about you. You were described as vindictive. There was references to abuse of power, a refusal to engage in any discussion about the case. And there was one in particular that stood out to me. One of the attorneys in a case involving someone who was detained had information that the person had in fact reported as required. And he was trying to provide you with this information because the hearing about his client's well-being was to take place soon. And it says that you snippily told me that he would not even try to call the PO, I assume that's probation officer, on such short notice after I suggested he could at least try to reach out, and then you might get lucky and catch him. Is that true?
No, Senator, it's not true. And that's exactly the type of issue raised in that email, where it's an allegation about an abuse of power that, if true...
So you did make the phone call?
No, the whole episode as described in that email is not accurate. And if
I'm not going to know that, and I'm not sure you do, but the basic point here is that you could have made a phone call that would have resolved the situation of whether his client had in fact reported or had not, and you wouldn't make it. So you're denying that that's true.
I do deny, and I think the paragraph describes that one of my colleagues stepped in.
All right, let me go on to the next one. Thank you for giving me your answer. The prosecutorial misconduct scandal, that is of concern to me and presumably would be of great concern to you in your job as a prosecutor. And what the judge found, that errors were so severe that following a jury verdict in his favor, the government determined that further prosecution of the case would not be in the interest of justice. I mean, this is a case where there were prosecutorial assets used, there was a conviction, and then the prosecution had to end it, right?
Right, and I was one of the supervisors who participated in that decision because I was so disturbed by the violations that had taken place.
But what the judge said, as I understand it, is that you offered little in the way of supervision.
And so, as I've said, I respect Judge Nathan's decision. That aspect of the opinion...
But he said that, right?
It said that, but it was always difficult for me to square that with the fact that during the operative weekend, on both days, I was with the prosecutors. The record reflects that I spoke to the prosecutors at 10 o'clock on Saturday night, at 10 o'clock on Sunday night.
Well,
so again, I'm not perfect, but I did do my best there. My best wasn't enough, and I acknowledge that. But I don't think it's true that I didn't work hard on it.
Let me go on to a third thing. In 2021, the Southern District's Executive Committee initiated a formal investigation into your conduct. And my understanding is that after that happened, that's when you shortly thereafter left the Southern District. Is that correct?
No.
When did you leave the Southern District?
December of 2021.
December of 2021?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's shortly after the 2021 investigation. have you ever been asked or had to take anger management or behavioral management at the Southern District?
No.
All right. Who won the 2020 election for President of the United States?
President Biden was certified as the winner of that election.
So you give the standard answer. You can't say that he won because he got the majority of votes and also got the Electoral College victory?
I think the characterizations that you just made, Senator, are both political, and so I can't address them under the canons, and they're also tied up in ongoing litigation.
Help me understand how it's political to state who got the most votes in any election.
Senator, I'm just trying to be precise. The process by which our country declares the victor in an election is a certification process. President Biden was certified.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Welch.
Yield back. Thank you.
Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and congratulations on your nomination.
Senator Peter Welch didn't walk into that hearing looking for a soundbite. He walked in looking for an answer, a simple one that every American, regardless of politics, should be able to give without hesitation. When he asked judicial nominee Emil Bove who won the 2020 election, it wasn't a trick question. It wasn't partisan. It was a test of honesty and courage. And yet, Bove couldn't bring himself to say 3 words, Joe Biden won. Instead, he gave the kind of evasive, lawyerly response that's become far too common in the Trump era. President Biden was certified as the winner. That's not truth. That's choreography. That's someone trying to thread a needle between fact and loyalty. And in that single sentence, Bove told us everything we need to know about what's happened to the conservative legal movement under Trump. Because here's the thing, when a nominee for a lifetime judicial appointment, someone who will interpret the Constitution, decide due process cases, and rule on matters of life and liberty, can't affirm the results of a free and fair election, that's not neutrality. That's cowardice. The power of Welch's questioning wasn't in its aggression, it was in its simplicity. He wasn't baiting Bove into a political fight. He was measuring whether a potential federal judge could distinguish between political convenience and constitutional fact, and Bove failed, miserably. When Welch pressed him again, asking whether he believed Joe Biden won, not merely that he was certified, Bove refused to say it. That might seem trivial to some viewers, just semantics, but in truth, it cuts right to the foundation of judicial integrity, because judges are not supposed to dodge reality, they are supposed to be bound by it. The American legal system depends on a shared understanding that facts exist, evidence matters, and truth is not negotiable. If a nominee can't affirm something as basic as the outcome of a democratic election, an outcome upheld by dozens of courts, including judges appointed by Trump himself, then what happens when that same judge is asked to rule on voting rights, election interference, or executive overreach? Welch wasn't just exposing Bove's lack of moral clarity, he was showing how deeply the rot of Trumpism has seeped into our institutions, how it has reshaped the definition of integrity itself. Under normal circumstances, this kind of exchange would be unthinkable. A judicial nominee refusing to affirm a certified election would be an automatic disqualifier. But under Trump's shadow, denial has become a career move. It's how loyalty is measured. And that's what makes this so dangerous, because when truth itself becomes optional, democracy becomes fragile. And that fragility isn't theoretical, it's already shaping the courts. Trump's appointments have been overwhelmingly ideological, many drawn from a small network of partisan operatives and Federalist Society insiders whose loyalty lies not in legal principle, but political allegiance. These are the people interpreting laws that affect voting rights, reproductive freedom, and even the separation of powers. So when someone like Bove sits there dodging a question about the 2020 election, it's not just an academic exercise. It's a preview of how he'll handle truth in the courtroom, how he'll treat facts when they collide with ideology. And that's precisely why Welch's questioning matters so much. He reminded us that democracy isn't just defended at the ballot box. It's defended in confirmation hearings like this, where honesty and principle are tested under oath. When nominees twist language to avoid offending one man, the same man who tried to overturn the very election they can't acknowledge, it tells us that the judiciary is still under siege by the same forces that stormed the Capitol on January 6th. And maybe that's the most disturbing part of all. Denial isn't just about refusing to admit who won, it's about refusing to admit what's been lost, our shared reality, our commitment to truth, and our expectation that public service requires moral clarity. Welch's questioning may have looked calm, even understated, but it cut deep, because he wasn't just interrogating Emil Bove, he was interrogating the moral state of the modern Republican Party. And in that silence, that deliberate refusal to say Joe Biden won, we heard the quiet corrosion of truth itself. That's what authoritarianism looks like when it wears a suit and smiles politely. It doesn't shout, it avoids, it evades, it hides behind legal phrasing. The real question now isn't whether Bove will be confirmed, it's what his silence means for the next generation of judges who think that telling the truth might cost them a career. Because when truth becomes partisan, justice becomes impossible. And when a judge can't say who won an election, how can they ever be trusted to say who deserves justice? This hearing wasn't just about one nominee. It was about the direction of the country. It was about whether facts still have standing in American law. And Welch did what so few are willing to do in Washington today. He forced that question into the light. If we care about the rule of law, about democracy, and about the survival of truth itself, we can't afford to look away. Because these confirmation hearings are where the next decade of American justice is being written. And that's exactly why the liberal lens exists, to cut through the noise, decode what's really happening, and remind people that democracy is a daily responsibility, not just a political idea. So if you value this kind of honest, fact-based commentary, if you believe that truth still matters, don't just watch. Be part of it. Subscribe, share this video, and join us on Patreon to help keep this work independent. Because in a time when truth is under attack, every voice defending it matters.